The biggest block that I would see, which plays out at every level, is just what people resist. So what you resist persists, and at every level you resist something. So the more successful that you become, the more that you want to not have that taken away.
Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome to Uncovered. I'm super excited. I've got a dude I just reached out to just to see if he wanted to jump on my podcast. We don't know each other very well, so I'm looking forward to getting to know you in this hour. Welcome, Cody, to Uncovered.
Thanks for having me. I've had a few podcasts over the years, so I know the time that it takes to be able to put it together. So thanks for putting it together and allowing me to be able to share with your audience.
Yeah, perfect. So look, I'd love a little bit of a background on you, Cody, so I get to know you and so the audience does as well.
Yeah, perfect. I started my business back in 2010 and in the fitness industry. Basically was managing bars before that and got sick of getting people fat and drunk. So I thought, you know what, let's get to the other end of the spectrum and let's get people healthy.
Yep.
And then from there, I kind of transitioned into, we had the most profitable RTO campus in Australia with the Australian Institute of Personal Trainers, and I was managing that just after I started as a personal trainer a couple of years in. And that was my first step into kind of working, being a coach, but also working with a lot of coaches. So that was about 10 years ago. And basically from there, I just became obsessed with just working with people to be able to basically unlock their potential. That was like the primary essence of the book that I wrote, The Flow Formula. And like ever since that first experience, I didn't really think about it at the time. I was just doing like putting one foot in front of the other. I didn't realize that I'd be working with coaches over the next kind of 10 years to be able to support them in various ways through creating my own certification and my own modality, and then supporting people to be able to create theirs and basically turning their magic into whatever their unique thing is, that unique modality, their unique methodology, to be able to allow them to basically just scale their business without scaling themselves. So
tell us about what that means to the audience to know what you're actually talking about there. So we're talking about scaling the business without that. Tell me what that means in English.
Yeah, for most people, the best example of this is I was talking to one of my friends. She's like doing like $500,000, and she goes, "Oh no, I just don't want to scale because I just don't want to work more."
Yeah.
And I go, "Oh, okay, cool, great. That's part of it. We want to scale your business without scaling up your time. We actually want to scale back your time, because often what happens is we get into this addiction to more. We just think we just need to do more to get more. And the reality is, in many instances, if we just refine certain things and optimize things, we can actually get more done in less time. And when I'm doing that with businesses, I set a cap that they can only work 4 days a week. So they have to, when people start working with me, I say, okay, you've got to be okay with only working 4 days a week. Yes, we're going to continue to scale your business, but if that's at the cost of your health or your relationships or any of those other things, then I don't really want to be a part of it. You can go and work with someone else. So when I'm talking about scaling up their business, it's always scaling up the revenue, the profitability, as well as their legacy and the impact that they're creating, while also just capping how much time, energy, and effort that they're actually putting into it.
Yeah, I love that, and I think this is really systemic in a lot of people, isn't it? People do a lot of extra work, and then when they think they've got to get further, they have to do more, and it's not that way. I've been on lots of coaching calls where the people are actually doing less work and earning more money, and it doesn't make any sense to the human mind, does it?
Yeah. What's it's this funny thing. What's intuitive to us is often actually just instinctual. Instinctually, we think that we need to do more to get more. The reality is, though, what's counterintuitive is when we do less, we actually get more. And this is the
Love
thing
that.
that plays out for so many people, of that mistake of, like, our feeling is both our intuition and our instinct. We both feel in both of those things. We're feeling, if we're running from our instincts, then we're very nervous or reactive to things, and we're feeling it a lot. Whereas if we're intuitive and receiving things, then that's a higher level, but it's still based on that feeling. And it's important to understand what is the frame of reference that we're creating from that limitation of, like, okay, cool, well, if I need to get more, then doing more isn't probably going to get me there. It comes back to that old adage of what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah, exactly. And so tell us about this. You've got this this thing that you do. You're here to create the opportunity for people who are intuitive and visionary to actually build something. And I Cody, I think this is really fundamental, because what you're talking about, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, listeners, is that you're talking about really good people, right? So people who have an intuition and a vision, they quite often don't lock that into finance. They just want to help the planet change, and they don't think business, do they?
Yeah, definitely. The intuitives and visionaries are the good guys. They're the people who really want to elevate the level of consciousness of humanity. And I talk about it in the skill and business mismatch, because we have the skills of supporting people to raise their level of consciousness, which is at a certain standard, which is normally really high for visionaries and intuitives. It's really high, but then their business is, so if their skills are an 8 or a 9 out of 10, then their business is like a 4, and they've got this mismatch, and then they just don't impact the people they could be impacting, and then they don't actually get revitalized by their business because they're just giving without receiving. And it's this mismatch which plays out, which just creates burnout for so many people, when what we're really looking at doing is we're really looking at creating access to this integration of both our skills and our business, and it's enlivening both of those things in an infinite loop, and it feeds into itself again and again and again. It becomes this enlivening process for us to be able to really start to shift by us shifting ourselves, then creating that out in the world.
Yeah, I love that. So look, I've worked with a lot of people. We do something very, very similar, Cody, in a very different way, because we're all unique in the way that we do it. I want to ask you this question about how you help people with this evil word that everyone does, which is called money. Like, how do you get people to work with that word and call it magical and special, so they can get that magic out? Because I know that you would be definitely working on those blockers for a lot of people to be able to get themselves out of the road of that word and work with it. So how do you do that?
Yeah, good question. The fundamentals of money is it's really just energy. And as we start to shift our relationship to energy, then it's ultimately just about the energy exchange that we can create, which is then measured in the metric of money. So the biggest limitation that we have is we associate all of our survival through money. Meaning, if we have this low level energy and it's filtered through survival, then it creates this limitation, because then we only ever come from our instincts if we follow on from the conversation that we've already been having. If we're in a relationship with money and it's instinctual, then it's only ever based on our survival, and we do whatever it takes to be able to survive then. But then if we're from that fight or flight kind of mentality, what happens? Well, we don't make the best intellectual decisions. We make short-term decisions, but Businesses aren't built based on short-term decisions. Businesses are built based on what we can actually start to expand out. The depth and clarity that we have of our vision determines our capacity to be able to create through time, not just today, through time. And when we can actually start to shift that relationship from it being a reactive, instinctual relationship with money to actually start to elevate it higher and higher, then we can actually start to create, consciously create through the mechanism of understanding that it's energy, and every interaction is an energetic exchange, and how we can actually start to utilize processes and systems to be able to create like an irrigation framework for the flow of that money to flow through things, especially through your business, and especially with your energy through your business too. Then it just becomes so much easier, because we're no longer running around with a bucket trying to catch rain. We've got this system in place where we can actually start to create either a tank or a dam of energy that goes through things, and then it goes out through all of the piping system for everything there as well, where we can actually just start to channel our energy. Because the biggest limitation that most intuitive or visionary coaches or leaders have is they're like, oh, well, if I put systems into my business, then it'll get cold. Because what got me to the first level was like my energy and how people actually would feel me, which is true. And at the same time, what really happens is you just start to create systems and processes and models in your business. It just means that the energy is channeled to where it is most useful. It doesn't actually get cold. It actually enlivens the energy of the business. And when the energy of the business is enlivened, then the money just flows as part of it. And when your relationship with money is one where it's only energy, well, it just becomes so much easier, because we're no longer filtering it through the instincts of like, I don't have enough or I do have enough, and then I'm filtering through that. So the way that we typically shift that is just elevating our level of both relationship and consciousness to the energy of money, and also then just integrating it back into systems so that we can actually channel it to the right places.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you unhook the instinctual layer that's based on fight or flight, and you're putting people into their spatial layer, which is their visionary and their intuitive layer, and blending that and putting the money and hooking into that. Is that correct, or am I off base here?
Yeah, definitely. Like if we think about how it plays out, like any kind of like I think in models.
Yeah, I can see that. You're like me. I'm spatial. You're really spatial too. I love our conversation right now. You're always thinking in an abstract way. It's cool.
Yeah. So like there's foundational levels of people who are reactive that are in the scarcity, and then we go into the hustle mentality of being willful, and then we move into an intellectual frame of reference where we start to shift that. If we're seeing it, then that's the next level up. It's between intellectual and intuitive. And how we actually start to see things as energies at intuitive level. That's what we're looking at getting to. So there's, depending on where people are at in their relationship with money, we're looking at elevating it up to those higher levels. Then like just with any kind of hierarchy, there's also levels above and below those things, but they're typically not people in business at those levels. So we don't necessarily talk about those in a business context. But yeah, there's different aspects of where people are at, and it's just allowing people to be able to level up their relationship with money in that context, so that they can actually consciously create what they're here to create as part of their soul's calling, as well as what they're lit up by.
So, Cody, what do you think the biggest blocker is for people who struggle to break through this paradigm to get their vision and their intuition and what they're really wanting to do to bear fruit?
The biggest block that I would see, which plays out at every level, is just what people resist. So what you resist persists, and at every level you resist something. So the more successful that you become, the more that you want to not have that taken away.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've seen this on Facebook, Cody, where I've known a lot of people who have gone from 6 to 7 figures. And that is a really big ego trip for a lot of people. And that 7-figure people go and start putting their weight around and putting their chest out and saying, look at me. And they're making sure that people are noticing them because they're there now.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to watch the psychology of the ego jump. And then they actually, some of them can turn into, who were really nice guys, I watched them turn into bullies.
Yeah.
Because they're scared of losing what they've grabbed. It's really, really interesting, isn't it? Depending on what layer people go.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. It's whatever we're resisting plays out at every level. At the bottom, you're resisting often feeling, but that's what you're actually doing the entire time. Whereas if you start to elevate up, again, you start feeling, but then you're avoiding losing things. But again, it's still a filtration through the animalistic parts of us and the instinctual parts of us. And the more that we can kind of integrate those parts, the more that we can actually start to elevate our consciousness as part of it. Like even the most spiritual people still have instincts that play out. I saw a hilarious meme on I don't know, Facebook or Instagram somewhere the other day. It's like this guy who's dressed as a monk and he's obviously like relatively enlightened, and he's standing there, but then there's this lady in front of him with huge boobs, and he's like looking down at them, and it's like, oh, that's the last thing to go. Your sexual instincts or something was the comment, which plays out regardless of how much work we've done on ourselves. We're still an animal by nature, and at every single level, the animalistic tendencies are the things that we get to integrate to be able to elevate our consciousness. Otherwise, we just resist them because I'm more aware or awake to these things. And the reality is, at every single level, the more things that come up for us that we notice that we're resisting, which is keeping us at that level.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is really, really important, is that remember when I started working in helping people, I started, helping people in 1998. And what I did notice is that, people thought they had to let go of everything. And let go of everything and keep letting go of everything to become more. And what they didn't realize they were doing was creating division and boxing themselves out away from themselves and not integrating themselves through wholeness. And it was really interesting to watch because, you see the ego coming, oh, no, I've sorted that out now. I'm not that anymore. Don't touch. We don't look at this. We don't do that. That's not right. And they didn't realize that they're actually creating government systems within their human psyche. But they thought they were higher than now when they're actually dropping into their ego. Yeah. It's really interesting watching, how people do that with consciousness. So I'd love to talk to you, Cody, about what you've noticed with, with this word, because it's one of these words that, pops around and people say, higher or lower or whatever in these aspects. When we're talking about consciousness for the listeners, can you explain sort of what this means? From your perspective, what consciousness is, sort of what it looks like for you, and how more awareness can actually become potentially a trap sometimes for some people, because the more aware you become, the more responsibility you have to have. Let us know where you're at with it.
Yeah, consciousness, like the word consciousness. I think it's like the suffix, the NESS, is basically means the experience of. So it's the experience of conscious or being conscious. And for us to be conscious, we're aware of something and we have our attention on it. Now, our level of awareness is basically a big long spectrum, and we're at a certain level of consciousness. And as you're illustrating before, is when you become aware of something, it's this double-edged sword, because as soon as you become aware of something, you're aware of where you're not doing that. Which part of the journey is then, like, you're aware of it, but you still can't stop it. Like the funny thing is when people go through like an NLP course, it's foundational, so they understand how they're using their language to create their reality. And they start to see all of these things playing out, but they end up just shaming themselves for the language that they're using, because it's automatically and unconsciously coming up out of them and out into the world. But they know that they should be using different language as part of it. So part of the journey of consciousness is you become aware of something, and then you become aware that you're not actually integrated in that. Now, this is one of the big things that plays out for so many people is the more that you know, the more that you realize that there is to know. And this is part of like what they call the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is like as soon my favorite quote with it is, as soon as you identify as the master, you no longer are. Because as soon as you think that you've got it, then what's going to happen is reality is going to reflect things back to you to highlight how you're not actually integrated in that, which becomes this constant evolution. So it's we get that ego hit of realizing how we become more conscious, but then we also get the ego hit of, oh yes, now I'm more conscious, but then we realize, okay, cool, there's actually so much more to go. And it becomes this evolution that we actually start to go through, this unfolding of experience where we get to actually consistently reflect on ourselves. And it is that double-edged sword that you talked about of, well, the more that we become aware of, the more that we get to take responsibility for all of those things, because we understand exactly what's happening. We understand how we're actually creating those things, and how we're the conscious or unconscious creator of our reality.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that is, well, then like you can't externalize it anymore, because you realize that it's actually just you. Everything is just a reflection of what's going on internally for you. If we go back to old principles, it's like as above, so below. All of these things that play out is just the world is the perfect reflection of it. Again, as we talked about before this, all of the principles that we talk about are all just either actual old principles or principles that are old that are just repackaged in a different way. Because I was commenting all of the sacred geometry. It's like, well, there's so much energetic frequency within all sacred geometry that we may as well utilize that to our advantage, rather than just trying to recreate things all of the time, because it's only ever recreating the same things. Like if we think about magic or any of these things, it's all just repackaged in different ways through manifestation or whatever it is. So
yeah, I love that. Look, I'd love to highlight this with you, Cody, because what you said is really, really important, and you said something that a lot of people don't do. So I really love how you've articulated, because you don't have your head firmly up your ass.
Not all the time, anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes we have it. The thing that's really interesting here is you spoke about something that a lot of people don't do, and this is what I quite often see in evolution. So someone says they're the master. All they've done is they've got an awareness of something, and then they think they've become it. And that, I talk about this in the academy, is learning-based leaders is constantly in the growth tool model, where you're actually got your L plates on, and you never think of yourself as the master, because you never are the master of anything until you just keep growing through learning, because then you're never going to have your head up your ass. And so what do you do when you are mentoring someone and you see someone who says, hey, Cody, I've just figured out this thing, and because of instantaneous change, I am this thing now without any experience of it. I am it. And then they actually show, all their history shows they're nothing of it at all. They haven't proven that they have done it now. They haven't got it into the future yet. How do you talk to these people when you can see that they've got their head firmly up their rear end? They've just figured it something out. And a lot of people do this with a consciousness level. They think, I've just heard something through my mind's eye, or seen something with my mind's eye, or heard something with my knowing, and now I am it, without any wisdom behind it. What do you do with that when you're mentoring people and helping people when they don't really have it covered? They've just figured out the story, and you've just explained that you don't know it. You've realized you're not anywhere near that aspect. You've just figured something out.
Yeah, great question. It's there's kind of two parts to it, because it's a paradox. The first part of it is like when I self-crowned myself as the modality guy of like, oh, I work with people to create their modalities. I self-crowned myself. there's the conscious creation of that, because that's what I receive intuitively of what I'm becoming. And I'm also in complete ownership that I don't know shit about what I'm doing as part of that. I'm willing to crown myself that, even though it brings up all of my internal insecurities around things, around why should I do that and all those different things. And yet I am completely authentic and transparent that I don't know everything with that. And at the same time, I can play that out into the future and start without needing to know all of the details, which is the first side of it. The limitation is when people do that in the shadow way, which is what you're talking about.
Yep.
is okay, cool. All right, now I'm this person over here, but I have zero foundation for any of that. I'm the 7-figure coach guy, and I've never had 7 figures, and I do all of these different things and all of the shadows that play out with that. When I'm working with people like that, it's rare. I actually had an example of this. We were running a client event this week for our mastermind project scale, and one of our clients was like, I'm doing all of the things, I'm doing all of these different things about how I can grow my business, I'm doing all the top of funnel stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, great, yep, great, awesome, thank you. The first step that I always do is I just meet them where they're at. And number 2, then I just start to highlight what's possible. So I go, okay, cool. If you're doing all the top of funnel things, then these are the 4 different ways that you can grow your top of funnel. Which one are you doing, and what are the results that you're getting from it? And I also say, okay, cool, these are the mistakes that people make when they're doing it. They think that when they're growing top of funnel, if they're posting on Facebook, then that grows their top of funnel, but it doesn't really, because there's no organic reach. Now, if you're posting reels, then that gets organic reach, so that counts as top of funnel. And they go, oh, I'm not doing top of funnel because I'm only posting on Facebook, meaning I'm not actually growing my audience. I'm just nurturing the audience that I currently have. So my steps that I would take people through for that would be, number 1, meet them where they're at. And then number 2, shift that paradigm of what they're actually doing to become aware that there's so much more. And what they think that they're doing is they're thinking about doing it more than they're actually doing it, which is normally the thing that plays out in that instance. So when you have that perspective, it's easy to be able to support people through that, because you can just meet them where they're at and start to shift their perspective and paradigm around things. And the best example of this that I utilize is in a metaphor. It's what I call a tower metaphor. If you're in a studio, which is at the bottom level of a tower, and you look out and you see the ocean and you see all of those different things, it's typically like the lower levels as well. We then move up to kind of the apartment level, and you're up higher, right? So you have the exact same view, and you're looking at the ocean, it's the exact same view, but it's a different perspective. Then we go up to the sub penthouse, and it's up higher again. We're up on, call it the 20th floor. Same view, different perspective. Again, we get up to the penthouse, and the penthouse often is different in a lot of different ways, because you've had to go through all of the floors below it, the levels below it to be able to get there. But also the penthouse often has like rooftop access. So it has this greater perspective where it can actually go down all of them and explain everything which is going on, because they have the highest perspective that looks down on things. Now, this is what happens in business. Someone's looking out of the studio at level 1, and they see the ocean, and they're explaining that. And they say, hey, I'm the 7-figure business guy, and they explain it from that level. But they don't actually see all the different perspectives of all the different things to be able to go up. And as soon as you can see someone, and whether they're explaining it from a studio level or an apartment level or a sub penthouse or a penthouse level, you can instantly understand their level of embodiment and integration with it. Because if you understand where those levels are, you can basically see where you are, and you can see, okay, cool, are they at that top level? Are they at that middle level? Or are they at the bottom? Because if you are a master of what you do, or a student consistently learning, which is part of mastery, then you'll be able to determine exactly where they're at and support them to be able to start to elevate their paradigms and elevate their consciousness by shifting their perspectives, by just starting to go, okay, cool, well, if you're here, let's look at it from this perspective, which is the example of what I gave with the top of funnel example. It's like, okay, cool. you're thinking about doing it, and you think that you are doing it, and your results say different. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think this is really important. I love how elegantly you put that as well, Cody, because it can be very challenging. I work with people, and it can be really crushing when they realize they're nothing of what they actually say they are.
Yeah.
And then it's a bit of a deflation sometimes, and they go, "Oh my God." There's got to be a certain way in which we can do that to make sure that the tires don't get completely deflated, and then someone's feeling shit. Like, I was just talking to someone who, you're obviously not like this and I'm not like this, who basically hammered this poor lady, and she was doing this hypnotherapy course, and she's got no self-esteem now because the leader smashed her to pieces. Yeah, and a lot of what she said was true, but the delivery's got to be done in a way that's not going to actually demoralize the human psyche along the way. I think this is really, really important to know how to do it elegantly, because it's so much better when the person figures out and goes, "Oh my God, Cody, I'm nothing of what I said I was. Can you help me? Can you help me elevate myself into the place I want to be?"
Yeah. And the biggest way to be able to do that is with what I call embedded epiphanies, meaning I can stand at the front of the room in that event and go, "Hey, you're not doing this, you're full of shit, blah blah blah," all of these things, and hammer them. And some people like that. Some people do like that method of being coached.
I hate that.
Most don't.
It's not me.
Most don't.
Yeah.
So there's a time and a place for it, but you need to understand exactly who actually likes that, because it's a small percentage of the population. Whereas if you highlight to them in a model or something that there are different stages, then they realize what stage that they're at without actually saying to them. And this is based on like the process of mediation. If you've got something in between people, if we have an example as a model in between us, which is what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
I'm not the person that's telling you that you're not doing it right. The model is, but then they put themselves into the model, so they have the awareness and the reflection. So they have the epiphany themselves to go, maybe I'm not as far along as I thought. I'm not doing it in a hammering way. They have it themselves, which allows them to be able to make the choice of going. They have the opportunity internally to be able to resist further and dig their heels in more, or to elevate their awareness to actually level up, and then it's their choice.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I've got a question for you, Cody. Another question.
Right.
Your book. Tell us about what's in the Flow Formula book. For the listeners to get a little bit of an understanding, this is great for you to plug what you do. What is it about your book, and what made you decide to write one?
My book is the Flow Formula here, and it's hilarious because it is the perfect expression of how it plays out. I wrote the Flow Formula. It's one of those things. I was always knew that I was going to write books. I always knew that I was going to speak. I always knew that I was going to write books, and this was just the first one that I finally got done. And it's about the modality that I created and the certification that I'd created for coaches to be able to create change in people. It was called The Key to Creating a Superhuman Society to Unlock the Potential of Humanity. And I laugh because it's the exact journey that I go through of me being humble, of not being humble but fake humble, of like, oh yes, I just have a book, it's best-selling thing, blah 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 blah. But then you go through the resistance of like, oh, I hate all of those things in it because I've evolved so much since then, and all of these different things. That's not me anymore. No, I don't even like these things. I'm not even going to promote it to people. That was part of my journey with my book, because it was such a long process to be able to create and put out there. And it was such a humbling experience, because if you've written a book, you know how much time, energy, effort, tears and blood that goes into it. And then so many people afterwards are not necessarily happy with the results from it. And that was my case, because I rewrote it like 3 times and then eventually just put it out. And the thing that got me to finally put it out was in Joe Vitale's book Zero Limits. He was talking to this. Have you read it?
No, I haven't read it. No.
It's about Ho'oponopono, which is this process of healing that he takes people through. And the basically the shaman guy is talking to him because Joe Vitale says, I've realized that all of the other books that I've written are all wrong. He's like written like 12 books or something at this stage. And the shaman guy goes to him, he says, all of those books are the perfect book for one point in the journey for certain people. Because my journey's gone past that now. Because, well, my and his journey has gone past that now. It's like, well, I can just put it out there because then it's going to be perfect for certain people at that point. It's not about me and my relationship to the book. It's about it being something out there which is going to be able to create the perfect evolution for where certain people are at so they can evolve their level of consciousness, rather than me go through the ego journey of going, oh, that's not me anymore, this is not me anymore, and all those different things. And it's hilarious because of the cycles that we go through. And like my cycle with the book is like all of the things that I talk about in there of me talking about those things, but then not necessarily integrating them to the standard that I do now. And yet now I do. And I talk like, as we started this before, of like my calling and my vision of what I'm creating is so similar to the key to unlocking a superhuman society. It's hilarious. It's just different language. And it's the perfect evolution of like the things that we go through, of that resistance kind of swing of the pendulum of things that plays out as we start to evolve. And that's definitely something that I've journeyed with this book. So that's probably like the worst promotion of my book.
I love it.
At the same time, it's like the same with all of my writing. It's
Cody, it's brilliant. I'll tell you why it's brilliant is because, look, usually someone comes in and goes, hey, check this out. I've got a book out too. I haven't actually, apparently it's a really, really good book, but I haven't read it. I've just put it out there and just went, okay, there it is. You know, I'm just super humble. So I just go, yeah, I don't let anyone, half the people, I was thinking this morning, actually, I should probably let people know I have a book. Because I just haven't put it out there. And look, I love what you've just brought down to the table there. Is that, you know, I remember like in 2010 I met my wife on the 10th of the 10th 2010. It was a very auspicious day, and I was teaching stuff that I'm embarrassed about now. Right, embarrassed about. And I laugh about what I was teaching in, you know, from 2003 to 2010. Because I've moved on from there. The thing is, we all have to start somewhere. And the cool thing about this, Cody, is that when you are moving along a pathway, it doesn't matter whether we call it up or down, left or right, that doesn't really matter. But when you're moving along your pathway, the way in which you start developing and change, if you don't look back and go, hey, that was a bit dickwaddy, you're not really getting it as far as growth is concerned, isn't it? Right? You're looking and you're going, hey, that's probably a bit embarrassing what was there. But at that point, that was exactly what it needed to be. And of course, that book is going to be really important for thousands of people. And this is what's really essential, listeners, is what you're hearing from Cody. And this is what I'm loving to get to know about you, because I don't know you until today. What I'm getting to know about you is the way in which we're meant to understand our past, that we're meant to look at our past and be a bit laughy at it and go, yeah, that was the way I was thinking back then. It was different language, just as you said, like different language, same sweet spot, right, of what we're looking for. It's just a different way of doing it because we don't do it the same way. There's going to be thousands of people. So I'm plugging his book, right? So I'm plugging his book for not for the actual content of the book. There's something about people that I find really, really intriguing. I'm plugging the heart of the man that's behind the book. And so when you meet people who have a certain heart that's got a way of approaching that is so self-reflective. You want to read and you want to absorb and you want to understand the way in which people are, because they're really able to look at themselves deeply and manufacture an ability to see themselves with their limitations, break through them. But it's the heart, right? When we're looking at buying from someone, listeners, ultimately we're looking for someone who's actually going to feed us safety, support, and love, right? And then they do stuff to show us stuff that really they're after our hearts. And what I'm hearing from you, Cody, is a man who has his heart in the right place. I've seen you with pictures on Facebook when I got to see you with your little one, and you just had your little one, and your eyes, I was like, I saw that, and I was like, I really like you. And that's why I wanted you on my podcast, because the moment I saw you with your kid, I was like, okay, he's a daddy. He's not a father, he's a daddy. And then I get to understand the human psyche, and I go, this person has some really important information to share because of the way he is as a human being. What are you hearing right now?
Yeah, thank you. When we go back to like the different levels that we talked about before, we buy based on who people are more than anything else. We justify it in our head with the content that they give and all the different things that they deliver for us. But at the same time, you'll buy based on who people are the most. And the biggest thing that people want to have as an experience is they want to, as you said, have that safety. I talk about it as they want to be held. They want to be held by a coach. They want to be held by someone in their humanness when all of their shit comes up. Because they can get strategy, they can get all of those things anywhere.
Yeah.
And the more that you own who you truly are, rather than putting on the act or the mask or the professional, the Amazon best-selling book author or whatever, the more that you put that on, certain people will be attracted to that. And if you're truly authentic with who you are at your core essence, you'll be magnetic to everyone. Well, what is magnetism? It's where there's like opposite energy. And what that happens is if you have the energy of your heart and the energy of your electrical system, your nervous system, your brain, and those things become in coherence, what that does is it creates a specific energy that creates magnetism for people because they see it and they yearn to have that experience inside themselves. So people become attracted to them. Then it's not necessarily anything that I say or that I do. It's more about who I am. And that's the perfect experience of how it plays out. And if we can just start to focus on that in business on an even deeper level, and we just bring our unique magic to everything that we do, it just becomes so much easier for us to be able to live a life that we love. And then people have that experience where it's just like, oh, well, I just see his eyes and I instantly get so much of his reality of who he is in the world and what he stands for and the values that he has and the integrity that he has and the authenticity that he has. It's people think it's like all of the like getting the right language and all of those things. At the same time, if you're raw and you're real, then people will have a real relationship with you and they're going to want to do business with you. So that's just the perfect reflection of that. So
yeah, but you are a unique unicorn in the way that you're speaking right now, right? Because a lot of people, listeners, when you're going to a business coach or you're going to someone to help you scale your business and do something, what they're promising is tactics. They're promising all of these things, and that's part of the sales call. But at the end of the day, we're not actually wanting those things, right? So I've worked with and met a lot of really wealthy coaches, and they're depressed, right? Because they're not living what Cody's talking about here. They're actually doing tactics and they're really good at that. And they thought that those tactics was going to make them happy. They thought it was going to make, and sure, it's made them some success, but has it made them some success in their heart? And Cody, what you do is very different because you're actually providing a heart-based form of leadership. You're giving the tactics, to get them where they need to go so they can get better at what they do. You're helping them with their vision, but most importantly, you're helping them become happy on the inside. That's what I see anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It's you can use tactics as a crutch, and strategy as a crutch, whereas because systems and structure is confining, that creates safety for people. I use models and systems to be able to create safety for people so that they can actually be who they truly are. Like, people still come to me for those things, or so they think when they start, and at the same time it's like, oh, that's where they've got their safety, so that we can actually start to create that expansiveness in everything that they do. So regardless of what people do and want when they're working with a coach, ultimately it's ensuring that, as you said, they get both things. I talk about, in business, you give people what they want and what they need. It's not sell them what they want and then give them what they need. You sell them both what they want. You sell them what they want and give them what they want and they need. You give them it all. That way they can experience their own level of allness as part of it, so they can start to experience that on an even deeper level, which is ultimately what it's all about. So, yeah.
I love this. So, listeners, I'm going to end it here. I would love it if you could like and share this podcast of Cody's. What I want you also to do is have a look at his book, have a look at his stuff. And if you're interested in getting some support for him, I'll get all the details of how to catch Cody and what to do with Cody in the show notes. You've got a Facebook group. You've got ways to connect in to find you. I think this is really, really important, listeners, to get people like this. And this is why I love meeting people in this forum, because Cody and I do something very, very similar. We're not competing, right? There's no such thing as that. I look at you right now as an ally for helping the human condition change, right? And I've gotten to know a very, very special human being today. And I would love it if someone needs this man's help to reach out to him, so you can get the liberation that you need to get where you can go to build your vision with your intuition, to match that with the income, so you can get the life that you want. So thank you so much, Cody, for jumping on Uncovered today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. As I said at the start, it takes a lot to be able to put one of these together. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with your audience. And I think that's the perfect thing to kind of wrap up on as well. Every single person is unique, and people will work with you because of your uniqueness, even if there's someone that does the exact same thing in your niche or something in a similar vein. People will work with you because of you. That is your best unique selling point. So the more that you can be more of you, the more that's going to create magic in your reality as well. And Jason's a testament to that as well. So if you're getting value from this podcast, I'd love for you guys to let Jason know, because I know that sometimes you don't hear from a lot of the listeners as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I have so many people, I listen to your podcast, and they don't comment.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm encouraging all you guys who are listening, who are lurkers, just to send out some props to Jason for putting this together, because it does take a lot of time, energy, and effort. And yeah, it's always great to get that feedback from the listeners. So thanks.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate your time, because time is so valuable. What we'd love you guys to do, if you like this podcast, if you could share it with your friends, and also our website address for the podcast is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. Our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademy.com. We have a free Facebook group called Wellness Leadership Evolution, so search for that. I'd love it if you could add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't buy it, so add me as a friend. And if you want some help and you would really like some support from us in the Academy, jump in. We have a process. You can do a break-in call to connect in with us. We do small courses. We have lots of things that we share. So we'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to change your life and turn it into a free one. You are one transformation away from change. Come and catch up.